one bird to think about, effectively there's quite a bit of time to shoot it, 2 shots at 1 bird. Now we are going for 2 shots, 2 birds. There's a lot involved in this. It's not just pulling through a bird and getting it shot. We've got to cover footwork, timing of the shots, and obviously techniques depending on where the bird is in relation to our barrel. When you're put in front of 2 birds flying at you, you don't want to be wasting any time. You want to be picking a bird early. In this instance, I'm going to be picking the rear bird, purely down to preference really. There's no law saying that you should pick the lead or the back bird. We have 1 bird in front of the other here, so for my view, from my eyesight perspective, I want to be making sure that the rear bird is shot first, so it gives me a full view of the second bird. When I transition from A to B, I'm going to be changing my footwork to keep the balance, and I'm going to stick with one technique here. I'm going to shoot the swing through on both targets, purely down to the fact that I don't want to be trying to give a bird a perceived lead if I'm slightly out of time. The good thing about swing through technique, it's quite a forgiving technique. Basically you're following a bird's line, so in theory, in my opinion, it's the easier way to do it, and it's the better technique for your eyes to stay connected to the target. If I did pull onto the first bird and I did miss it, I would stay on it and shoot it again. It's just good practice to get into that habit, and you can do that on a tower here with clays. You can get into that practice. Right, we've got a pair of straight pheasants. One is pin straight directly at me and one is offset to my right. Now I'm going to be using the same technique on both, but in the transition from bird A to bird B, I'm going to be changing my feet a hell of a lot, and I'm going to overemphasize it a couple of times so you really see it. Probably one of the biggest faults that people would do, they'd set their feet work for one and not change them for the other. Okay, so all that does, it just throws up problems. The gun can come away from the face, the shoulders don't stay square, balance of the body's different. It just makes a mess of the shot really. So basically I'm going to shoot the first bird with a nice long swing through out front, because it's a controlled shot that I like to use on birds out front, especially when they're taking a straight line. Hopefully get the shot off early enough, about halfway to me, to give me enough time to turn my feet, to take the second bird on as a crosser over my right side. The aim of this is to get the first bird out of the equation really, get it down out front. Gives you enough time to turn and take that second bird as a crossing bird. You never want to make it go past your centre point really, so in theory, if you're shooting over your neighbour or anywhere past, that's on the limits of being too late. I mean, if you're shooting birds behind by a long way, in my opinion, you're better off leaving them and just letting another bird come in front. Too many people make that mistake. They'll take a late shot. It just looks messy. Most of the time we don't get them. So it's just better practice to either leave it or get a good efficient shot out front on that first bird to give you enough time on that second target. So it's very important when that first bird comes off, you're looking to select a bird. In my opinion, it's better to select the back bird here when things are happening quite fast, because it gives you enough time to pull through to the second shot. You'll see that the end of the barrel engages the bird immediately really. I'm not rushing, I'm in control, I'm following a nice smooth line, and by the halfway point the first bird should be hit and down. It gives me enough time to turn, take that shot off my right shoulder. Really look at the barrel cam here, because you'll see the swing through really comes into play on both shots. Oh. So you have to be very confident when it comes to this. Notice how I'm taking the first bird about a 45-degree angle really. It still gives me all the front end of the bird, the vitals. So ideally I'm quite confident that if I put shot in there, it's a dead bird immediately. I can take my mind off that and acquire a new target. Notice how my feet don't change massively. It's just a very short move round to the right. If we overemphasize it, we could come off line of the bird. It's another important one to think about. Pull. So I drop below, pull through, turn, lock on. And if you notice the feet, they're not, as again, I'll overemphasize it, we're not making a huge turn, because what that can do, if you turn your feet too far round, you'll end up having your back to the target, to the first bird, and then we're stretching back here, and it's going to give us unnecessary movement. So I'm all about efficiency. I like to see somebody who is a controlled shooter. I feel very confident I'm going to get both of them every time, purely because I've got the basics and the foundations nailed down. It gives me an easier ride up there basically. There's nothing untidy happening. So behind, through, turn, push through, nice and slow. So in theory, it's all happening quite quickly, but if I concentrate on what I'm doing and concentrate on being smooth, I can get 2 shots off relatively quickly under a lot of control. So that's what I'm looking to do. I'll show you 2 more. The key here is not to panic on that first shot. If we panic on that first shot, it will overstretch onto the second. Second shot will be panicked also. So when you're ready. Oh, so behind, through, kill, turn.
When you're shooting an animal with a rifle, you're very specific about where you're putting your shot.
Definitely.
Do people have to be that specific again with the shotgun? If the bird's gone past you, you're not shooting at the vitals anymore, are you?
No, you're right. It's a good subject to touch on, really. You'll notice in the 2 shots that I'm taking there, the second bird is shot about level with where the line is in a safe direction. So it's key to learn, in my opinion, it's key to learn to shoot birds out front in order to get the impact to hit the vitals, the head, the chest. And also from a timing perspective, if you can fire accurately out front and hit most of the things that you shoot at, nobody hits them all, it's always good to see that bird crumple out front, and then you've got, let's say, another 2.5, 3 seconds to shoot another bird which hasn't already flown through the line. And it's always bad practice, sorry to say, is when you'll see somebody shoot out front and there's a lead bird that's already gone through, it's gone behind the line, and they'll poke a shot into its back end. So you're not firing at vitals anymore, you're firing at tail feathers, feet. It's the sort of thing that you don't want to be getting into the habit of, because although you may hit it, it's not really an effective shot, it's not going to fall dead. Another tip would be, if a bird has broken the line, if it's gone through, you've shot your first one, you come round, it's already behind, leave it, forget it, turn around, use your second shot on another bird, or swap your guns if you're double gunning and start again. You know, it's always good practice to be ethical in the field, whether you're shooting a rifle or you're shooting a shotgun. I think across the board, we've got to remember as shooters that we are shooting live quarry, so we've got to do as much as we possibly can to not wound and not be blasé with what we're doing, basically. So it's, yeah, be safe and always think about the animal's welfare as well.